Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Let's hear it again. Come on, I know it's early. Good morning. Welcome to the 13th Annual Women's Conference and Expo, sponsored by the Brookhaven Town Supervisor, Edward Romaine, and the Brookhaven Town Office of Women's Services. My name is Marion McNulty. I'm currently Vice Chair of the Town of Brookhaven's Office of Women's Services Women's Advisory Board, and I'm delighted to welcome you here this morning as we present the We Can Do Anything Women in Non-Traditional Careers Conference. As the advisory board members ponder the question of what topic the conference should be each year, we attempt to find themes which not only interest those who attend the conference, but also subjects which will enhance our attendees' knowledge, wisdom, and self-esteem. What better way than to present a keynote speaker and panelists who have been so successful in truly non-traditional jobs for women? Will all the members of the advisory board who happen to be in the room right now please stand along with our executive director, Sharon Boyd. We'd like to give them a round of applause for presenting another great conference. We could never have such a successful conference as this without the support of some very generous benefactors. This year, our platinum benefactor is the Brookhaven National Laboratory. Our gold sponsor is American Regent, formerly Leupold. Silver sponsors include JATF Local 355 United Service Workers and the Bridgehampton National Bank. Our bronze sponsors include OBGYN at Stony Brook University, Bethpage Federal Credit Union, Time to Play Foundation, Janet Frymark, and Jefferson's Ferry, and we thank them for supporting us so well each year at this conference. In addition, we are very fortunate to have vendors who have supported this conference for years. We have some new vendors who are joining us for the first time. I urge you during the breaks and at the lunch period, please, 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 please walk around, meet our vendors, purchase, look at, take, whatever, the services and wares that they present. They make this conference a huge success. Our keynote speaker and panelists have so much to tell us, and we can't thank them enough for their wise counsel and interesting commentaries. After the panel discussions, please don't leave. They'll be available for a Q&A period and may even be available for personal questions afterwards. But don't make them too personal. Nobody wants to do that, especially on a Saturday morning. For some excitement, there will be raffle drawings right after lunch. Please be sure that you find one of the ladies with raffle tickets. You've got to be in it to win it. I'd like to introduce two of our elected officials who are here with us this morning, and we thank them so much for that. The Honorable Valerie Cartwright, who is a councilperson from the 1st Council District, and the man we all love to hate, our collector of taxes, the Honorable Lou Marcosia. Please stand up, Lou. It is now my great privilege to introduce Supervisor Edward Romaine. Supervisor Romaine is a stalwart supporter of the Office of Women's Services and the programs the office provides. The office has always been able to count on him when we need him to step up for us. Thank you, Supervisor Romaine. Edward Romaine, Town Supervisor of the Town of Brookhaven.
I'd like to thank Marion. She was a long-term family court judge, and I appreciate her being here and moderating this morning. First, let me say thank you to Sharon Boyd. Sharon, stand up again. This is the director of our Women's Services. She does a phenomenal job. Second, thank you to our advisory board. Would those members stand up again? Because these are the people, come on, these are the people that give us input. Women can play such an important, and have played such an important role in the events of our country. As supervisor, I've made it a mission to include competent women in key positions, my chief of staff, my deputy chief of staff, my commissioner of housing and human services, as well as HUD deputy, the head of purchasing, our town attorney, our deputy town attorney, and I could go on. We have many capable women that are doing a wonderful job in this town, and I am committed, amongst many other things, to pay equity. Pay equity is important, that people get equal pay for equal work, and I am strongly committed to that. Let me talk a little bit about our women's services, because people don't realize the impact that it has here in Brookhaven. Our helpline receives over 3,000 calls a year. We have partnered with over 300 agencies across the town and the county. Our women's support groups include domestic violence, women's support group, and divorce information. Key support groups for women depending on their situation in life, because oftentimes, and we all know that, there are times in life we need a helping hand, and that's why we have those support groups. We continue to partner with the Debt Counseling Corporation, and that's free counseling that we provide for women that say, look, I have a situation, financial situation, I'm a little bit in debt or a lot in debt, can you help me get out of it? Is there someone that can counsel me? Can someone give me some financial information? That's all free. We have our Dress for Success, which was established in 1999 and has suited at this point over 6,000 women. I'm going back into the workforce. And I went to my wardrobe, and I really don't have anything. Can you help me out? I find that hard to believe, but it's possible. And we have suited over 6,000 women. And the point is to give them the step up, because we want women to succeed. They are our mothers, our wives, our daughters. They are our aunts. They are people that we want to see succeed. They're part of the human family. We offer a Career Edge program. I just was down there, and it's a 6 or 8 week program. And I went down there and spoke to all the women. It's a free program that we provide to help people going back into the workforce. How to write a resume, how to do an interview, how to dress, how to prepare. All the secrets of success. It's a professional course that we pay for. It's free, and we run a number of these throughout the year. Our volunteers, and let me tell you, Sharon's like a superwoman, but she can't do it alone. We have a small staff, but we have lots of volunteers. And they say we have over 5,000 volunteer hours for women's services and Dress for Success. And you should know that the Dress for Success has always received a 4-star rating from the charity Navigators because we don't charge, we're there to help, we're there to make a difference. And let me tell you, after a long life, some of us are older, I am, and you look back, it's how many people you've helped along the way. If that's a measure of success, that's the measure I'd like to see. So I am going to, as supervisor, always be there to support all women's services. I think of a very good friend of mine who passed a few years ago, who helped start the Office of Women's Services, Edna Gerard. Her husband was Gene Gerard. He was a councilman for 24 years. He's still alive. I think he's 95 years old. But Edna was a dynamo, and she pushed for women's rights and women's services, and I always remember her in my thoughts and in my prayers. We need more people to advocate for everyone, particularly for those who need a helping hand. So as we start this Women's Expo, let's think about what we can do to help other people, and particularly women. And I am focused, I think Newsday's writing an article about pay equity. I am focused on not only hiring women, competent, capable women that are doing a great job directing this town. The head of our building department, Tara McLaughlin. I can think of a whole host of women in key positions that I've made absolute commitment because I'm looking for the best. And many times the best is a woman. And I'm looking for that as supervisor. So thank you for coming for this expo. This is something we do every year. It's something to focus attention on the needs of women and how we can serve them. I would also remind you we have great vendors that are participating. Please go visit them and have a great expo. And again, to all those who've organized this, all those who work behind the scenes, thank you. And as we leave here today, keep in mind what the goal of a good life is: helping people. And I am particularly thinking about helping women, our sisters, our mothers, our wives, girlfriends. They are our significant, I'm speaking from the male point of view, our significant other. How do we relegate them to second-class citizenship? How do we pay them less for a job that a man gets paid more for? Let's think about that. Let's go and get them. Thank you. Have a great day.
I told you he always stands up for us, and I can guarantee to you after 30 years in politics in this town that he does. Our moderator for today's conference is Advisory Board member Denise Nostrom. Please welcome her and have a great conference.
Good morning. How's everybody feeling this morning? All right, good. I mean, it's a Saturday, of course, right? And I'm sure most of us want to stay in our beds and, be warm under covers. I see you, that's right. But the fact is that this morning you got up, you got dressed, and you made it here. So congratulations. That is the most awesome part of the day. So yes, give yourself a hand. That's awesome. So a lot of times when we come to these things, I know I do this, I always go in with a mission. So maybe you want to take a few minutes and decide what it is that you are here for today. It may just be to, my friend told me to come and I should be here, or maybe I want to learn a little bit more about a job, I'm looking to change careers. But just think for a moment what it is that you're here to do today. So, think of that. I'm gonna test you later. No, I'm just kidding. But one of the things we also made the decision this morning is the weather, what we were going to wear. So I see everybody's a little bit different. I'm not giving up summer. I'm still not putting on the tights yet. I'm just keeping it where we're going to hold on to summer as long as we can. So, but we have a good day. But I want to give you an idea, basically, of what the day is going to entail. Basically, we're going to start off with our keynote speaker. And from there, we're going to take a little bit of a break. And then we're going to go into our panel discussion with our women in non-traditional careers. And after that, we're going to have lunch. And please stick around till 2 o'clock because a lot of our vendors, a lot of the other speakers talked about the day. We have a lot of vendors, and thanks to our sponsors, but please come around and see them. We can't encourage you enough. It takes a lot of planning to pull together all of your material and your items and everything, so please give them the time. They don't bite, so you'll learn a lot of stuff from them, and you'll be able to purchase a lot of things from them as well. So, at the end, we have a bunch of auction baskets that you can auction off. We have raffles that are for sale. So I know we have Marissa is going to be one of the people selling, and Wendy. Where's Wendy in the house? Wendy's going to be selling too. So basically, try to get out there. We have a lot of raffles, a lot of baskets that are going to be great offerings later. And I know some of the vendors also have some giveaways too. So stick around. You got to be there to win it. From 1 to 2, we're going to do that and also give you time to get around and see the vendors. I do want to thank a few people. I want to thank Sharon Boyd, who is the glue that holds it all together. So without her, this conference really wouldn't be what it is every year. But I also want to thank the committee, the conference committee, because the countless meetings and hours spent to pull this all together, unless you've done something of this magnitude, you don't realize how much time and organization and coordination and all of that goes into it. So I want to thank Marissa Pizza, if she could stand up. Madeline Grasso, if she could stand up. She's giving me the eye roll, but you gotta love you, baby. All right. We got Wendy Johnson, who I'm not sure is in the room at the moment. We got Gloria McCullough. You can stand up. Awesome. And me, I was on the committee too. Thank you. My name is Denise Nostrom, and actually I've just been on the Town of Brookhaven Women's Advisory Board for a little over a year, so I was honored to be asked to be part of this organization. I too am a woman-owned business. I have a small business. I'm a financial advisor. I worked with the big Wall Streets and left and started my own company at the age of 28, and I've been running my own show for over 23 years now. So I get it. I understand what it is to be in a man's world, although it's changed a lot over the years. But in the financial industry, we'll have a conference of about 100 people, and maybe 20 of us will be women. So, but that's okay. It's all good, and it just means that, you know, we're there, we've done it before, and later on we're going to hear about a bunch of trailblazers that have done such amazing things in non-traditional careers. So I also actually run a nonprofit women's organization called Power of Women Exchanging Resources. We do have a table outside, and what we do is we raise money for scholarships for women, and we do a lot of assorted other things too. You can go to our table and see the list of all the wonderful things that we do, with the whole premise in mind that we lift up women and not push them down. The bottom line is that, you know, together we are so strong and we can do so many things, but a lot of times there's that friction with women. But if we're all doing well, if we all do well, we're all helping each other and making it happen. So that's something that's a big thing for women, and a lot of us need to do that. So I'm hoping that today will be a day that you will be inspired, you will learn, network. As women, we tend to not ask for things, but if you see somebody on the panel and you have additional questions after we go through, ask them. Women love to talk and tell them about themselves, so just ask, learn, network, and the bottom line is that we can do it. Women can do anything. So next, I would like to ask a question. Well, we got a lot of different ages in here. So in the 80s, who was listening to the radio, listening to music? Awesome. All right. Starting off pretty good. This is good. Who's familiar with the style of music called freestyle? Love it. All right. This is good. So TKA, Stevie B, Cynthia, raising hands, Lisa. So we had a whole bunch of different artists that are out there. And the beauty of freestyle music was freestyle started in where? New York. Boogie Down Bronx, Brooklyn, Long Island. This is where it all happened, and it's definitely been infectious and went through the country. So let me ask another question. Who's familiar with WKTU? All right. All right. Radio station that's been on for a really, really long time. Disco, freestyle, rap, a whole lot of different genres there. So the woman that we're going to be hearing from today wears a lot of hats, but for most of us that love her, she's our queen of freestyle. And, but she does a lot of different things. She's a wife, and actually, we are very blessed to have her. She actually celebrated her 5th wedding anniversary yesterday to the quiet one, so let's congratulate her. And she came all the way from, I think she was in Pennsylvania with her hubby, all the way to Long Island to be here with us, so this is pretty exciting. She's also a stepmother. She's an on-air radio personality at WKTU. And let me ask another question. I know a few people in the room, but who was at No Reason to Cry, the one-woman show in the Puerto Rican theater? All right. Well, we're hoping to get her back on stage because you have to see it. So without further ado, but she's got one more other thing. I'm sure I'm missing a whole bunch of stuff. She does a whole lot of things. She's also just a certified life coach. That's her most recent achievement. So she's all over the street. We love her. She's awesome. So without any further ado, We are going to
Hola, mi gente. My name is Judy Torres, and I am a young 51. My very first song, No Reason to Cry, was recorded when I was just 17. And at the age of 19, it finally got on the radio. 1987. There's no reason for you to cry, my love, 'cause I'll always be around. So dry your tears, my love, I'm here, always standing by your side. 1997. There's no reason for you to cry, my love, 'cause I'll always be around. So dry your tears, my love, I'm here, always standing by your side. 2007. There's no reason for you to cry, my love, 'cause I'll always be around. So dry your tears, my love, I'm here, always standing by your side. 2019. There's no reason for you to cry, my love, 'cause I'll always be around. So dry your tears, my love, I'm here, always standing by your side. That song wasn't even supposed to be my song. I was given a different song by my producer, Mickey Garcia, and there was another artist that was given No Reason to Cry. Well, turns out, the day we met, we confessed to one another that we didn't like each other's songs. Actually, that we liked each other's songs, we didn't like our own songs. And so with my producer's permission, we switched songs. So I got No Reason to Cry, and she got the other one. No Reason to Cry. When I first heard it, I thought, wow, that's a song that could give people hope, you know? And little did I realize that that's exactly what the song did. It gives people hope, it helps people hold on. I've sung that song at weddings, I've sung that song at birthday parties and clubs, at Madison Square Garden, Radio City Music Hall, even people's last requests at funerals. So I knew already that the song was going to do well for people. But little did I realize that one day, life would force me to ask myself that very same question. Is there a reason to cry? I really hate sometimes that I recorded that song because I have to stand as an example of what that song means all the time. And every time I start to cry about something, people automatically say, you know, there's no reason to cry. But I've realized, you know what? In life, in my life especially, the highs have been so high and the lows have been so low. But what I'd like to do today is just stand here as a testament that at the end of the day, there really is no reason to cry. It's not to say that you won't cry. It's just to say that at the end, you're going to be okay. I heard Oprah say one time that everybody has a story. And I thought, wow, I never forgot that she said that. For some reason, it stayed in my mind that everybody has a story. And I feel like if we just listened to each other's stories, if we just took the time once in a while to listen to each other's stories, we would be completely different. We would be kinder. We would be more compassionate. We would be more forgiving. We would be less judgmental, less critical, less competitive. For some reason, as women, there's this tendency to snicker and whisper and talk behind each other's backs. When in reality, we all have the same. We all want the same. We all need the same. So if we stay together, I really think that everything's going to be okay. And I really think that there would be no reason to cry. So I thought today I would share my story with you in the hopes that it would inspire, empower, and encourage people. I was born in the Boogie Down Bronx. And by the age of 7, my mom left a very, very abusive relationship with my father. He was mentally, physically, psychologically, and emotionally abusive to my mom. And growing up in that environment, even though I was really, really young, I remember everything. The first biggest memory that I have, the first feeling that I remember is terror. I was afraid. I was terrorized. I was always in this place that I thought, oh my God, he's gonna kill her. So when my mother left my father at the age of 7, I thought, thank God, now things are gonna get better. We were so poor in the Bronx, my mother was completely on her own. I'm the oldest of 5. And when we got to the Bronx, I thought, yeah, this is gonna be really great. And for a while it was. Sleepovers, roller skating, playing handball, all these amazing things. And then, shortly after, my mom met my stepfather, who was abusive to my mother, emotionally, physically, psychologically, and mentally. To the point that it got so scary that nothing changed until one day he pulled out a gun. And my mom told me to hide in the bathroom with my baby brother. And I heard a bang. And I had no idea what the hell happened. I heard a scream, and I thought, that's it. My mom's dead. The idea that I had to leave the bathroom and go see if she was okay changed my life forever. When I got out, the bullet had hit the wall where I had been standing. If Mom hadn't told me to go back and hide in the bathroom, that could have been me. And ironically, the bullet ricocheted off the wall into his hand. She finally left him after 7 years. And I thought to myself, what lessons have I learned from this? Well, I learned some wrong lessons. Some of the wrong lessons, the early lessons in my life that I learned were, what happens at home stays at home. Be a nice girl. Be good, Judy. Because I noticed that when I did good in school, he was a little bit more quiet. Be nice. Don't say anything. And don't get mad. Don't show any feeling. Just shut up, sit in the corner, and be quiet. Those lessons, those wrong lessons, really hurt me as I grew up because I never resolved them. I never heard someone tell me, no, Judy, that's not true. I was really, really depressed, even as a young child. And then finally I realized I need something. I need something to help me. I need something to get me through this. So one of the right lessons I learned as a child was find the one thing that sets your soul on fire, that gets you excited to wake up in the morning, that makes you feel like even though there's a whole bunch of bad stuff, this one good thing is going to make you feel happy. That thing for me was music. As long as I could sing, I could be anything I wanted, I could take myself anywhere in my head that I wanted, and I could survive. That was the lesson. And so I was like, okay, this is my dream. I want to be a singer, right? So what am I going to do? So I pounded the pavements. Right after I graduated from high school, I went everywhere and I sang to everyone who would listen. And finally, at the age of 17, I met my producer. I recorded No Reason to Cry. And it was amazing. It was an incredible experience. It got on the radio. And you know how they show in the movies how people act when they get on the radio? They freak out. That's exactly what happened. I was like, oh, yeah! Lost my mind. It was the best feeling in the world, the biggest natural high I've ever had. So with that was more success. No Reason to Cry got on the radio. I was given a second single called Come Into My Arms. And right after that, an album called Love Story. I felt unstoppable. I was performing all over the country. I was opening up for people like Tito Puente, Lisa, Celia Cruz, Gladys Knight. It was just amazing. And I just felt like I was going to the top, and I thought I had the idea of having a Grammy in my hand. It felt real for the first time. I thought, this is going to be it. My dream is going to come true. Little did I know, around 1992, 1993, the station that played my music, called Hot 103, changed to Hot 97. And the program director made this big announcement that they were going to play a new kind of music called hip hop. And that was it. The genre of my music, freestyle music, gone, dead, done. I hadn't saved for a rainy day at all. Not at all. I had every credit card imaginable. I bought my own condo at the age of 19. I saved $22,000 at the bank of under my mattress. And I was so proud because I was the first person in my family to have that kind of money. I was the first person in my family to go to college. I was the first person in my family to dream and see it come true. And I just felt really great I was able to help my family. So I never saved for the rainy day. So when it stopped, debt collectors started calling. Harassing is a better word because that's what they do. They harass the hell out of you. Had no idea they could do that, but they are relentless. I lost my condo. I lost everything in that condo, even the furniture, because I was so embarrassed and I didn't know what to say and I didn't know how to fix it. So what was I going to do? I hit an all-time low because I never had a plan B. I never saved for a rainy day, and I never had a plan B. So I had to start all over. I had to find a job. I moved to New Jersey. I moved to Jersey City, and my self-esteem was at an all-time low. So when I was a child, I never addressed the depression. And what I didn't tell you, and I didn't tell a lot of people until the age of 25, that I had been raped at the age of 16 by my first boyfriend. So I had a lot on my plate, on my emotional plate, in my heart. And my self-esteem was so low that I met a man who came along and told me that he was going to help me with my career and he was going to fix things for me. He was going to become my manager. He became my boyfriend too, because I had a big hole in my heart searching for my father. That was basically what it all was all about. But he was abusive. Not physically, because I made a vow that if any man touched me, he was going to regret it. So, but emotionally, mentally, he was very, very abusive, and that's just as bad, by the way. Sometimes I wonder if it's worse, but because it leaves you with scars and bruises that nobody sees. But finally, it took me 3 years to get the courage to leave him. And when I left him, he stalked me. He followed me everywhere I went. He had people following me. He had my phone line tapped. He had my beeper cloned. Remember beepers? He had my beeper cloned. He made my life a living hell. He extorted me for money because he had threatened to kill my sister if I didn't give him any money. So now I was in another problem. I got a temporary restraining order. That made things worse. He came after me harder. It got so bad that I reached a level of depression that I didn't think I could possibly have. I got to a point in my life just felt like I don't understand why I'm here. I reached a point in my life where I felt like my family's better off without me. I mean, who am I? I used to be the singer, now I'm nobody. I'm nobody. And I reached a day that was so painful. I was in such an abyss, I couldn't climb out of it. He had managed to isolate me from everybody, so I was totally alone. And I finally tried to attempt suicide. I took a whole bunch of pills. But I had a friend who called me, who intervened, who I believe was God totally working through her to save my life. And she called me up and she said, "Did you do anything stupid, chica?" Let me take that back, because she's like Rosie Perez. She's like, "Judy, tell me you didn't do anything. You didn't do something stupid, right?" So I was like, "No. Judy, don't lie to me. You lied to me, right?" So I confessed. And the ambulance came, and I spent a few days in the hospital, which was terrifying. Oh my God. It was like a scene from the movie Girl Interrupted. It was horrible. When I tell you I wanted to get the heck out of there, and they wouldn't let me go. And I hate to say it, and I don't want to put the medical community down at all, but they just medicated me. They weren't giving me the help that I really needed. What I really needed was for somebody to listen. What I really needed was for somebody to tell me how to get out. What I really needed was somebody to just encourage me and say, "No, you're meant to be here, Judy. It's going to be okay." My mom was that person. When my mom found out, my mom went ballistic. My mom went crazy in the hospital, fighting with everybody. And there was a doctor there that was really kind to me also. So together, they decided, okay, let's come up with a plan. I was able to get away from him because my mom decided, "You're going to come stay with me this summer." And my mom lived upstate New York. So I spent the summer with her. And the lessons I learned from that were, you got to speak up. You cannot stay in your own head by yourself all the time. It's damaging. I also learned you don't give away your power to anybody. You never mix business with pleasure, ever. And I learned if you talk about it, it gets better. If you have faith, it gets better. And little by little, it took me a while. It took me, I was in therapy for a long time, probably 12 years. I didn't need 12 years. The first 6 I think I needed. The other 6 were just because I liked it. I loved going to somebody and getting it off my chest, you know? And I learned those things, and I just started over. I started working. I worked for an attorney for 4 years as a legal secretary on the side. I did a lot of different jobs. I didn't love them, but it kept me busy. And it gave me some time to think about, what could I do? In that time, there was a lot of introspection. I had to look inside myself and say, what do you really want? So I turned to the one thing that my mom had given me since I was a young child, and that was my faith. Faith is interesting, because faith is this thing you're supposed to have. This thing that you're supposed to have automatically, no questions asked. I think faith is a choice. I think the important thing about faith is that it's believing in something that you cannot see yet. Believing in something that you cannot see. You have no idea how things are going to pan out, but there's something inside of you that says, I think it's going to be okay. I think I'm going to be okay. That faith grew inside of me little by little, and I just started to finally start smiling. And I started waking up with this feeling like, okay, what am I going to do today? How am I going to change things? How am I going to make this up to my family? Because I really hurt my family when I did that too. And I was ashamed of that. And so, all of a sudden, thank God, the phone started ringing again. And I started doing shows again. I started doing so many shows, my head was spinning. And finally, I got the opportunity to sing at Madison Square Garden. And shortly after that, Radio City Music Hall. And when I think back to that day, I think, if I had succeeded in killing myself, I would never have seen that. So I was so grateful that I hung in there and I did it, you know? And then everything was going really great until about 2005. I woke up in the morning with a pain in my eye, like when you have an eyelash in your eye. And every time I blinked, it hurt. Well, by the end of the night, I couldn't see red. and my head was hurting. And by the next morning, I was completely blind. And I was terrified. I went to an eye doctor who sent me to a neurologist, who sent me to a specialist. And finally, 4 days later, I was admitted to the hospital. A week later, I was told that I had multiple sclerosis. Multiple sclerosis is an autoimmune disease that has no cure. It attacks the spinal column and the brain, and basically specifically attacks the myelin, which is the protective coating around the nerves that send messages from the brain to the rest of your body to do what it has to do. Symptoms are different. They vary for everybody. They're very different for everybody. From blindness to trouble with speech to trouble with balance, numbness, tingling, and then you got the bad stuff. Paralysis, death. How in the world could something like this happen to me? After I had had so much faith. I was a good person. I gave back, I donated, I did tons of shows for free, I helped my family. What else could I have done? And then I was even more pissed off because every night before I went to bed, I said, thank you, God. Thank you, God, for everything that you've given me. Thank you that I can hear, that I can taste, that I can smell, that I can touch, that I can see. I never took that for granted. So why in the world would something like that happen to me? Another lesson. Things just happen. There are things that happen for no reason. And we are probably never going to find out why. I could think of lots of reasons that happened to me. I was under severe stress around that time. I had a part-time job so I could get medical insurance at a gym, and I was a manager. I hated that job because that job was about numbers. How many people did we sign in today? How many, vitamin supplements did we sell? And that's okay for some people, but for me, I'm a people person. I like interacting with people, so I hated that job. And I didn't speak up. Once again in my life, I didn't speak up. And I think that the stress from going to a job that I hated almost killed me. So I could blame myself. I could say that was the part of it. But who knows? So what I learned about illness is very interesting. I learned some lessons about illness. I learned that, number one, you really have a choice how you're going to define that illness. So I have some rules. Number one, never capitalize the letters of your disease or illness. So MS gets a little M and a little S. Because if you capitalize it, you make it important. Number two, never call it yours. It's not your arthritis or your diabetes or your whatever anxiety. It's just that. It just happens to be in your body, and one day it will leave. That's how I handle it. I don't talk about it unless I'm in situations like this. I feel like if I don't pay attention to it, it won't pay attention to me. I go to the doctor. I do what they tell me most of the time. Because I'm aware that there are more than one way to be healed. There are lots of different ways to be healed. So I keep my mind and my heart open, and I just ask God, show me. Show me what to do. And thankfully, He puts the right people in my life. So here I am, years later. I still have MS, and I'm okay. I got one really great eye. And I still love my life. And I still say, thank you, God, that I can see, that I can hear, that I can speak, that I can touch, that I can smell, that I can walk, that I can feel, that I can sing. And then, boom, I had an idea one day. Hey, there was this song many years ago that I haven't heard in forever. It was a rock song. You remember the group Journey? So Steve Perry, right? I had a big crush on him in high school because he had a big nose. I don't know what it was about the nose. You know what they say, big nose, big nose. And I pulled over I heard his song and I pulled over to the side of the road and I was like, wow, I could totally see myself doing this. I could hear it in my head. I could hear, whoa, whoa, whoa. I was like, yes, I'm gonna record Faithfully. So I called the label, I said, guess what? I got a new song, it's gonna be called Faithfully. And they were like, no. I said, but it's a good song. No, Judy, I just don't hear it. I'm sorry, I don't hear it. Come on. So I called this producer that I had been stalking for a few months. And I said, Valentin, I have to work with you. We have to do Faithfully. He's like, Journey? Yes, yes. No. Why not? That brings me to my next lesson. In your life, you're going to hear the word no thousands of times, hundreds of times. If I paid attention to the word no, I wouldn't be where I am today. Sometimes when people say no, you have to say to yourself, yes. You have to be your own #1 fan. You have to believe in yourself to a point that no matter what, people finally get it. So I prayed on it. God, I really want to do Faithfully. I could sing lots of other songs, but I want to do Faithfully. So I get a phone call. The producer calls me and says, you know, I thought about it. Ever since we had that conversation, I heard Faithfully 4 times. I heard it in the car, in the gym, in the supermarket, and when I was with my wife the other day. And I don't believe in accidents. So let's go for it. I said, okay, I have another problem. I don't have the money. And he's like, okay, I believe in it so much, we're going to do it for free. And if the label finally signs it, then I'll get paid back my money. I said, what if you don't? Well, we'll talk about it. I'll put you on a payment plan or something. So we did the song. And before I took it to the label, I went to the radio station. And I said, do me a favor, can you listen to this song? I didn't tell him it was me. I was working at the radio station, so I can just listen to the song. They put it on. And the program director was like this, typing on his computer. He wasn't even listening. And I was so mad that I put so much energy into this, and it meant everything to me, and he wasn't listening. But sometimes when people don't listen, somebody else will. And so the music director came running in. Oh my God, is that Faithfully? And I was like, yeah. He's like, oh my God, that's so hot, that's amazing, turn it up, turn it up. Then the program director was like, what is this? What is? I said, it's Faithfully. Oh, okay, who is it? It's me. No, it's not. You don't sound like that. I said, yes, I do. Because when I recorded No Reason to Cry, I was only 19. Here I am, I don't know, 30-something when it happened, I don't remember now. But by the time I got to the elevator to leave, my phone rang, and it was the record label. And he said, didn't I tell you not to do Faithfully? I was like, yeah. He says, well, send it to me. Let me hear it. So I sent it to him. And that night I got an email, congratulations, you got yourself a new record. And for the first time in 16 years, I had a song on the radio. And I felt like, wow. So now, I'm performing, remember, No Reason to Cry every weekend for 33 years. I said, what am I gonna do? What new thing am I gonna do? I was getting ready to turn 50, and I was already having like a little midlife crisis. I haven't done everything in my life that I wanted to do. So I decided, I know, I want to do a one-woman show. I'm going to call it No Reason to Cry, because No Reason to Cry follows me everywhere I go anyway. I'm going to tell my life story, I'm going to sing, I'm going to act, I'm going to dance, and I don't have any money. And I don't have any time. And I never did that before. So I hired a life coach. And I gave her every excuse in the book. I don't have time. I'm married. I have a stepdaughter. You don't understand what my life is like. I got shows, it's too much. I can't do it. And she said, well, let's talk about that. How bad do you want it? If you really want it, you'll make the time. You don't understand, my husband's gonna be really upset, because this means that I have to write the show, this means I have to rehearse the show, it's going to be really hard. And she was like, and how bad do you really want it? So the lessons that I learned from that experience was, if you really want something, you will make the time. And the people who are there telling you no, you can't do it, or the people who are quote unquote hating on you for doing it, they're just distractions. They're just tests to see how bad do you really want this. So yes, my husband and I had lots of arguments about it. It was bad. But you know what? For the first time in my life, I learned the biggest lesson I had to learn. I had to choose me. For the first time in my life, I had to choose me. And it was so scary. And it was so hard. Because I didn't have the backup that I thought I was going to have. But a year later, I was on stage at the Puerto Rican Traveling Theater, performing my one-woman show called No Reason to Cry. It was supposed to be one weekend. I only did it to celebrate my 50th birthday, to do something I'd never done, to break the wall, break the barrier, and get past the fear that I had. Because when you pass the fear, when you push against the fear that you have, behind that wall is victory. And so after that one weekend turned into 2 weekends. That turned into a month, that turned into 4 months. Best freaking experience of my life. And if I had to do it again, which I will do it again, I'll do it again. It was incredible. So I felt like, okay, what am I going to do now with the rest of my life? I'm still singing No Reason to Cry, 33 years now. I'm still on the radio, WKTU, 20 years now. But it's time to give back. That's another lesson. You can't take and take and take. You have to give back. You have to show the world that you're grateful. In gratitude, there's no room for negativity. In gratitude and giving back, it just helps you keep going. It gives you purpose. So my life coach told me that I should be a life coach because she felt that the advice I was giving her was pretty good too. So I said, okay, so here I am, certified master life coach. So I just wanted to share my story with you today to let you know you have a voice. Find your passion. Go after it like it's the last day on earth. Don't listen to the word no. Push forward. Have faith. Keep going. Keep working. Get mad. Don't work in a job that you can't stand. Don't spend another day doing it. It is really a waste of time. We are not here as human beings having a spiritual experience. We are here as spiritual beings having a human experience. It's important to remember that. Time is short. Somebody told me the other day, Judy, you're 51 now, and you're looking pretty good, but 61 comes like that. Don't waste another moment. Share your stories with you. What happened? 81, girl. Yes. Say again. 87. Wait, but do I hear 88? Do I have 100? 85. So you see, it doesn't stop going, but you have to keep going. And the reason the women who are in their 80s are here is because they decided that life doesn't stop. You keep evolving, you keep growing, you keep learning, you don't stop. So please, don't compete with one another. That's not what we're here for. We're here to become the best human beings on this planet that we can possibly be. I have no idea what's on the other side, but I want to be able to look God in the face and say, I did my best. I hope you're proud of me. Don't compete with one another. Lift each other up. Listen to each other's stories. Listen to each other's lessons. Learn from each other. You don't have to compete. There's more than enough room on the throne for all of us. Because as God's creation, we're all queens. So I hope that you got something out of this. I wish you love. I wish you blessings. And there's no reason to cry. God bless. Thank you, everybody.
Judy.
Thank you. Thank you.
Everything good? Ready to rumble? All right, let's do this. All right, so the first panelist I want to introduce is Jacqueline Rodriguez. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Jacqueline Rodriguez. I live right now in Coram. I have my own auto repair business in Mount Sinai, and I start that with my husband. We've been there for 15 years. I came in the business about like 7 years ago, and I started off basically just kind of in the background, and fast forward, I'm an auto technician that works on cars. I do everything from working on engines to basically, again, anything to do with cars I work on. I get my hands dirty. I don't wear dresses. I never look like this. But it's a great industry that I kind of fell into, and I didn't realize at first that this is where I was going to be, but I'm pretty good at it. I do enjoy it. Again, I work with my husband and as well as my mother-in-law, and it's a family-owned, honest, good business that we have, and it's an evolving industry. Vehicles, cars, everybody knows they change every year, and there's so much technology. So it's an exciting industry because there's always something different going on, and hands-on, and I like to get my hands dirty, work on cars, and I enjoy it. So, thank you.
Good morning, my name is Tiffany. I grew up in Long Island. Currently, I'm a foreman for a union roofing and waterproofing company. I started in a non-union company. I've been in the business 5 years and quickly moved up, and that's it.
Hi, I'm Ann Sanborn. I'm currently a member of the faculty at the United States Merchant Marine Academy, and I have been training men and women for jobs at sea for about 26 years, actually a little longer than that. My background is I grew up in the Navy. My father used to say that I was raised in shipyards all over the world, and it was something of the truth. And from one of the earliest memories was seeing my father's destroyer riding the anchor in a small harbor. All the beautiful lights were on. She was dressed. And for the 2-year-old child that I was, it was the single most beautiful thing I had ever seen in the entirety of my life. You grow up in that environment, and there's always going to be somebody who tells you no, that you can't do it, that you can't work on ships, that you're made fun of for loving ships. And the one person who never did that to me was my dad. I was his only daughter, and Dad had pegged me. He figured out that his daughter was going to be the one of his children who wanted to go to sea, and he was right. And he would tell me that. I graduated from Texas A&M in 1979. That was the second group of women to graduate from any of the seagoing academies. I started sailing on my first ship was a big gasoline tanker, big floating bomb. The Exxon San Francisco had just peeled back its main deck, and I'm like, worrying I'm going to mess up and help blow the ship up. But I sailed tankers. I worked on an oceanographic ship for a while, doing all the stuff that Jacques Cousteau does. Got out into the South Pacific. Spent 6 months in the Tuamotus, which was fabulous. And then I went to work for Mobil Oil, working 3.5 years doing oil exploration all over the world. And then the oil industry kind of was cyclical. We go through good times, we go through bad times. And so they laid off people at Mobil. 6,000 people got laid off, and I was one of them. And then I started working on I sailed master for my own alma mater at Texas A&M. That was the first time since the American Civil War that a woman had had command of an American merchant ship. And that was, so that kind of sums up my career. I went to law school after that, so I teach a lot of maritime law at the academy, but that's my background.
Thank you. That's awesome. And we have Brian.
Good morning. My name is Brian Keating. I'm Director of Training for the United Service Workers, Local 355. And I've been in the construction industry for probably a little better than 40 years now. And I've been training workers for a good 20 years now. Actively in the trade up until about 8 years ago when I took over the directorship of the Apprenticeship Training Center. And one of the reasons that I am here this morning, and I want to thank Sharon and the committee for inviting me here this morning, it is an honor and a privilege to be here, is the fact that a lot of people, and I'll ask the question during my introduction, how many of you really know anything about apprenticeship and what apprenticeship actually means? I think it's something in our educational realm that is left out. We teach a lot about college and so forth, and this is another alternative for young women to get into a viable trade and a career for life. Great benefit packages for the family, excellent learning opportunities, and it's not what a lot of people still have the old thought in their head of apprenticeship of being just on-the-job training. Our apprentices come to school 2 nights a week for 5 years from 6 in the evening till 10 at night, learning what they're actually doing, what the theory is behind the type of work that they perform. One of the misconceptions in construction was also that, well, if you can't make it in college, go ahead, go, you can go build something. Well, if you think about that logically, I'm going to build a 50-story building in the middle of Manhattan. You really don't want just somebody who's going to go there and start hoping it's going to stay up. So that's why we're training them the way we do. Lots of training behind the scenes, and they're working every day with a journey level worker who is actually training them side by side. It's a great way of learning. And I'm not a politician, so I won't use the word free, because you all know there's no such thing as a free education. However, the companies that hire these apprentices pay for their schooling, and they are paid a progressive wage scale, which is mandated and monitored by the New York State Department of Labor. So you'd be starting out at $15 an hour with a full benefit package, and by the time you're done in 5 years, you're up around $35 to $40 an hour with the benefit package and tons of room for advancement. So, thank you.
Thanks a lot, Brian. That's very good. And, this is something that is happening in the schools today, that we are, obviously college is one venue, but they're looking a lot into STEM, these, alternative job careers. And we hear, I'm not about negative talk, I'm always about positive, the income disparity. It's only income disparity if you believe it. So there obviously are alternatives out there that it doesn't have to be that way, and women can do anything. So I guess we'll start with Jacqueline. You might have touched on it a little bit, but how did you, decide that you wanted to work in that field? Like, what really was the key point that said, maybe what you were doing before and how you changed to get into what you're doing now?
So it's a funny story how I got into the field. So before I got into the auto repair field, I was actually a phlebotomist, taking blood. I was in hospitals, and I actually got into a pretty major car accident that I sustained major head trauma. And from my injuries, I lost my memory, and I forgot how to do everything, basically, all to do with everything I did with phlebotomy. It took me a while. I didn't work for like 8 months. I was in a lot of therapy, and in that time, my husband at the time, I was bored, I wasn't working, and I tried to get back into phlebotomy. I couldn't remember it. And so he told me, come into the shop and, just because I was bored, I wanted to get my hands on something and start working, start doing stuff. So I was in the shop, and little by little, a couple weeks, I was just filing, doing little things, picking up the phone, doing that. And Then I became a service writer, basically talking to customers. We have a small local shop, and it's really nice. We're in the heart of Mount Sinai, and you see all your customers, the people that come in, and then I basically, like I said, I just developed the technique and in working in the car field, and I loved that it was always different, my day. And I got to see my customers, and what I took out of it and what I enjoy most at this job, and what kept me at this field, was that I was helping the community. I was helping the people in my town, and auto repairs can get auto repair shops. They can get sometimes a bad niche. Not a lot of people know the background of auto repairs. And sometimes they have a bad rep. But again, we like to be trustworthy with our customers, and we talk to our customers. We have classes with our customers. We teach our customers. And it makes you feel good at the end of the day, doing something honest with our people. And like I said, I developed a niche for it, and I honestly started loving what I was doing. And I never thought in my wildest dreams that I would be doing auto repair. And then I think 2 years ago is when I started getting my hands on the vehicles and actually, doing repairs and picking up tools and getting my hands dirty. And, again, every car is different. And like I said, every day I'm doing something different. It's not repetitive, and I learn something new every day. So, and that's, I found that I had the passion for it, and passion helping people out, in that, I did that with the phlebotomy, helping people, and in this field, I do the same thing, and it makes you feel good. And like I said, we do honest work, so it feels good. And then I'm with my family, which is nice.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, Tiffany, how did you, get your job, and how did you decide to work in that field?
I started off working for a non-union waterproofing company. They did foundations for superstructures like in Manhattan and stuff. I started out, my position was a laborer, making $17 an hour. I learned the trade pretty quick and grew in that company. Within 3 years, I ended up being a foreman. I realized early on that, being a laborer and picking up garbage really wasn't for me, and I was capable of more. And so by the third year, I ended up with a company vehicle and running jobs for that. It was a pretty big non-union company. And that put me in position to work for the company I have now. I was working at Lexus of Manhattan on 51st, and I went to pay the parking meter, and I ran into the vice president, which I didn't know who he was at the time. He was in jeans and a regular jacket. And he asked me what I was doing and who I was working for. And he offered me that great job with the great benefit package that this gentleman was referring to. And usually a person in my position would have had to apprentice, go through the apprenticeship program. But luckily, I had acquired over 5,000 hours working for that non-union company. And I was able to come in with a full book as a journeyman. And I ended up, the guy gave me his phone number on the street. I wasn't too sure, but later on I looked him up online, and I realized he was the vice president of Local 8. So I called him, and he stayed true to his word. And within that week, I had a meeting. He made me quit my job, and I was working for Eagle One, the company I work for now. And 3 weeks after working for them, they made me a foreman. And it's an honor, coming in, being a woman. I had to work harder than everyone else. The men weren't that receptive to having a female, whether it's black or being a female or a little of both. I had to work that much harder and to gain their respect. But once I did, it's something else. I'm well respected, and that's it.
Congratulations. That's a pretty cool story. To rise up that quickly. That's awesome. So I'm going to jump to you, Captain Ann. Being a woman in a male-dominated field, how would you describe the reception of men when you started your position? I guess back when you did, and maybe how it's changed over time now.
When I first started, it was 79, and so I was joining ships that had never had a female on board before. And the reactions, you can't make up. I mean, it's...
Oh, tell us. No, I'm kidding.
I was like, you know, what do you do with this? You know, and so, you know, it was stuff like, I felt like I was, you know, Dracula walking on board the vessel, and people were at the top of the gangway going, "It's a girl, can I kill it?" You know. but you know, you just kind of, for the most part, you just ignore it. You know, it's if you get in there, you do your job. If, you know, somebody says something that they shouldn't be doing or does something they shouldn't be doing, you do need to call them on it. Because if you ignore those things, they come back, is what happened. And I'll tell a quick sea story here. Mariners love to tell sea stories, and I'm right there. I had my master's license at this point, but, you know, Mobil had laid me off, and so now I'm back working on coastal tankers. And we were in a narrow river, and, you know, ships will pull water into the stern, you know, and it's like your whole brain is looking at all this water getting sucked into the stern, and you're like, oh, please, make it stop. And, of course, it doesn't, but, you know, we're navigating this river. The captain and the pilot are up on the bridge, and they're both, you know, facing forward, talking about the transit, you know, and doing the things they need to do. And I was, you know, sailing as a third mate back at the beginning because, hey, you got bills to pay, you need work, and sometimes you do what you have to do. And the second mate comes up on the bridge, and he comes up behind me, and he ran his hand under my backside, under my ass, you know, the lingering fingers, you know, underneath the cant frame of your butt. And I'm like, oh no, we're not even going there. And I just turned around very quietly, didn't raise my voice, and I just said, keep your hands off my ass. I didn't raise my voice, didn't lose my temper. I just told him quietly, don't do it. So now the captain and the pilot, I thought I was quiet enough they wouldn't hear me. They did this about face. They both turned their back on the river. The captain looks at this guy and he said, keep your hands off the third mate's ass. And they turned around and they went back to work. And it's like, you know, the guy standing there going, I didn't think she'd mind. I didn't think she'd mind. And of course, we're all just ignoring him and allowing him to savor his public humiliation. But, you know, yes, there were those times. And those are the funny stories. But I guess what I would say on those things is if you have something you really want to do, do it. You know, that's what it comes down to. If you really love something as much as I love ships, you know, you will deal with, you know, the adversity, and you will find your way through it, and it is your personal choice that you're going to come out the other side of success. And that's something that I think is important.
I think that's a really good point. I think that's a really good point because a lot of times women feel that they shouldn't say anything, that it could be a possibility of losing a position or a job or a, you know, level that you're at. But, you know, the thing is you have to stand up for yourself. And I think that's such an important thing. It's just, you don't have to do anything crazy. You're just like, you're not going to do that. And sometimes that's all it takes. I guess, Brian, in your, in training these women, do you have any stories? Do they come back and say that there's any issues of women going into these male-dominated careers?
Years ago, yes. If we go back into the 70s and that kind of thing, it was prevalent. As time and as we have evolved, as construction has evolved, if you remember, you couldn't walk in the city going back into the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s without construction workers standing on corners and catcalls and whistles and things of that nature. And I also teach sexual harassment training to my apprentices as well. And in teaching that, you know, this could be someone's, or it could be your mother, your sister, your wife, your girlfriend. So the times, and in construction, we have evolved tremendously along those lines. That's no longer tolerated, you know, by the women, but it's no longer tolerated by upper management either. And that we have a very strong position on that, and we just will, you know, we just won't tolerate it. You're gone. We're not even giving warnings anymore. I mean, it's taught, it's talked about. You read it in the papers all the time. We're not going to put up with it. We're not going to, you know, deal with it. We just get rid of it. It's that simple.
That's really good to hear. Captain Ann? Yeah, please.
We have gone through the same evolution on, you know, making progress. And one of the things that is becoming actually pretty common, the men say things now. You know, somebody does something inappropriate, it's one of your male colleagues who will step up and say, you don't behave like that. And so there's been a lot of improvements that, you know, yeah, I was right at the beginning of a lot of these things. There's women here in the audience who experience those same types of things. But as I tell my students, the one mistake you can make is do nothing.
We also, you know, building on that a little bit, when you're working with an apprentice, and it's a female apprentice, as the captain just said, you know, your journeyman is going to stand up also and say, hey, this isn't happening, you know, so, you know, he'll go to his supervisor or whatever, and you're typically taken off the job. And then you go back through training, or you're dismissed immediately. So.
Well, that's great news, because, you know, we hear with the Me Too movement and all of the things that are going through the press that, you know, we tend to always hear the negative stuff, so there is a lot of positive stuff that's out there. So again, keeping it positive, I think, is really key in moving forward. All right, so next let's talk about, I'll go back to Jacqueline. Name one thing you enjoy most about your job, and then one thing that you least like about your job. I'm going to run right down the line.
The most thing, the one thing that I enjoy most about my job, it's always changing. I'm someone that I don't like to, you know, do the same thing over and over. And it's just every day is different for me. And again, as I mentioned before, working with my customers is probably the best, because they're not my customers anymore. They're basically my family, and I see them in my community while I'm shopping or stuff like that. And when they recognize me outside of my work clothes, they'll, you know, it's nice to see them. And then, you know, and they come to us, they trust us, and we have personal relationships with some of my customers, which is great, because again, we're just one big family. So, and the best thing, like I said, is helping my customers when they're, you know, so everything goes, you know, with vehicles, things happen and things go wrong, and I'm able to help them. So that's always rewarding for me. It's a very rewarding job. The one thing I least like about my job, I get really dirty. I can't wear dresses. I'm a very girly girl, and probably the one thing that all my girlfriends laugh about now is because I used to always have really pretty nails, and now they're just plain. I can't wear nail polish, do my hair, you know. So that's the only bad thing. I always have to constantly take showers. I get oil and grease everywhere and stuff in my hair, and I really like wearing dresses and heels. So it's really, I wish I could do that, but I can't, so.
Thank you, that's great. Tiffany?
One thing I like about my job is that there's room for growth and stability. It gives me stability. And also being a part of, you know, seeing the finished product, working on a superstructure. you know, and being able to go back when the project is complete and see the finished product. It's a good feeling. And what I don't like is the commute. The Long Island Expressway. I have a major resentment towards the Long Island Expressway and the commute. You know, you think being a roofer, you know, it's taxing, but to be honest, the worst part of my job is the commute.
Yeah, Judy knew about the Long Island Expressway. She got the taste of that today, too. So, yeah. Captain Ann.
Well, to me, the best part of the job is being out at sea. I don't sail anymore. I can't. I have pretty serious hearing loss, but it is what it is. I do miss that. You get out at sea, you see things that people only read about in books. The sunsets are amazing. And then, I've done things like I almost went through the eye of a Category 2 hurricane. And I don't generally say this, but I will tell you, as deadly as that storm was, it was the single most beautiful thing I've ever seen in the entirety of my life. It was overwhelming, to see the ferocity of what nature can do. And mariners, they tell these stories, and that can't be true. And no, it is a very different type of lifestyle. I wanted to travel the world, and I was able to go do it. So there were a lot of things that, were wonderful about the job. For me, the hard part, given the time frame that I was doing it in, was having to deal with some of the personnel drama at times. And some things I handled well, some things ended up being learning experiences for me because, there was no sexual harassment training in that time. And, so my hope is that it is better for the generations that are coming up behind us, that things are improving, and that people can follow their dreams and just go do it.
Yeah, so we have a boat, not quite as big as probably the Navy boats that you've gone on, but my husband had this great idea that last weekend we took the boat from Patchogue to Brooklyn, so I get part of what you're saying. It's amazing, although it was low-level, deadliest catch on the ocean. And I don't know if I could do your job is what I'm saying. And, the ocean part of the trip was just crazy. So you go, girl. That's really something else, seriously. So that's great. All right, Brian, so in the careers that you're placing women in, is it growing enough at this point that there's room for other people to enter this line of work? So talk a little bit about that.
Right now, there's a tremendous shortage in the construction industry, as there is in manufacturing, because nobody really wants to work with their hands anymore. And so right now, the construction industry is looking for competent women that want to come into the industry and actually learn it and then progress in it. And there is tons of room for advancement, for everything from project management. We teach project management courses as well, as to how to be a crew leader. As a foreman, I'm sure you've gone through some sort of crew leadership training. It takes a certain person to motivate the men and women to get them to perform the task at hand. And so there is tons of opportunities in the construction industry for women to come in and for them to be very successful, in the benefit package and so forth for the families. And I've spoken with single moms, the children are covered and all. That's a big thing in my eyes, that you're offering this to, to people that, now have medical insurance, they have retirement benefits, and all of this is, through an apprentices training program, and then, you're on your own to make what you have learned your trade. It's a great opportunity.
That's great news, and I know that's a fact. As I'm a financial advisor, I have a plumbing, heating, and electrical company I do 401k for up in Pearl River, New York, and the owners have the same issues, that they have so much work to do, but it's going to take them about 3 years to get people trained, to get them to the position and do the things that they need to do. So there's clearly jobs out there. So it's just, really learning, and this is a great forum to learn about all the opportunities that are there. So thank you, Brian. All All right, Jacqueline, considering all the people you've met in the field, I guess in the automotive field, do you go to conferences and do things like that?
I do.
Okay. What personal attributes are essential for success, would you say?
Definitely for this business, you know, especially in my shoes as a woman in this field, you don't see a lot of women, but there are more women in this, you see it coming. But confidence, determination, you know, it is a field that, you know, people see more as men in, and you don't want to ever doubt yourself as a woman in this field. It is hard, but you can't let that wear you down because you're just not going to move forward. And it definitely took me a few years to build that confidence in this, in the auto repair world. But I've stuck with it. I was determined to know what I was doing, and again, I was teaching myself. I went to classes, and I still do. I constantly, because again, it's an evolving field. So I'm constantly going to classes. I go to school. I get taught every 3 months or so. We go to classes, and I stick with it. And I that's the biggest thing for me was the confidence and the determination. So.
Tiffany, what would you say? Some attributes to do what you do?
Number one, I think, is consistency, good work ethic, and a positive attitude. You know, those things will get you a long way. And punctuality as well. Goodness, showing up is half the battle.
Very good. Captain Ann, would you like to tell us a little bit about it?
I think that the important thing is that people are willing to get out there and try. And in the course of doing that, you are going to make mistakes. You learn from those mistakes. There are some things in life that you can't recover from, but I find sometimes people who really care about what they're doing, you know, they are harder on themselves when they make a mistake than any supervisor can ever possibly be. And sometimes you just got to step back from it and go, I need to do a better job at that the next time, and let it go. You know, learn from it, let it go. Don't allow yourself to make the same mistake twice. But I think sometimes people kind of hold themselves back for fear that they're going to do something and something is going to go wrong. The thing that helped me the most was yes, there were a lot of negative comments, but I also had people who believed in me, and I think that has come through very clearly today, that, you know, we all benefited from somebody saying, no, I believe in you, you're capable, and you just need to, you know, to keep trying. And that's, I think, the thing is you just keep trying, you just keep showing up and doing the best that you can.
That's great. Well, let's go into some of you. We talked a little bit. Maybe we'll start with you, Brian. Give a little bit more of the benefits, and well, you kind of gave us a salary range to expect, so we'll kind of go through everybody. I guess like when you start, maybe we just can rehash that again, the benefits and then the salary, and then we'll kind of talk to everybody there.
Okay. I just wanted to kind of, with what the panel just said about work ethic and that kind of thing, one of the biggest problems we're having in hiring apprentices and workers is that work ethic, where they'll show up on time, where they'll show up every day. And when you say to them, we're starting tomorrow at 6 in the morning, they look at you like, what? I'm getting home at 4:30. What do you mean be there at 6? You know, it's amazing. That's a huge problem that we're having and I don't think it's just in my industry, I think in all industries. So that's a big thing. I just wanted to kind of touch on that. For an apprenticeship with us, apprenticeships start at $15 an hour. You're working a 40-hour week. The employer is paying for your education in the evening. And I think it's 90 days after you're in, you have a full medical, dental, life insurance, paid holidays, paid vacation, as well as our pension's a little different. It's called a security fund. And all of that is paid for by the employer. So your actual hourly rate is going in your pocket, not to help pay for your benefits. So it's really a wonderful thing. A lot of people are paying for their medical. We're not. It's paid for you. So that's a big...
That's a huge benefit.
Yeah, if you're going to be paying, if you've ever had to pay for your medical or COBRA or anything like that, you can be paying upwards of $400 or $500 a month for that, where this is paid for. So that has a monetary value. You know, you can't explain that sometimes to young people because they want the dollars in their pockets, not a benefit package or a retirement fund. You know, I'm 25 years old. What am I going to do with a retirement fund? Well, when you blink, all of a sudden you're looking at retirement and you're scratching your head going like, holy crap, how did I get here? You know? And
Very
so,
true.
you know, it's an amazing, you know, when you turn around, that time went by, you know, that fast. I was listening to the captain just talk about sunsets. I was in the Navy, and when I got, you know, when we were out at sea, I hit a typhoon. And the ship I was on, it was tossed around like you were a little kid in a bathtub with the boats and you used to make waves. That's what it was like, I swear to God. It was amazing. And the stars, the sunsets, unbelievable. You know, being in the apprenticeship and training, as Judy had alluded to when she was talking, I feel like I'm giving back. You know, I'm educating the youth. Or at least I'm trying to. That's the frustrating part, trying to get the youth to come into these programs and trying to get it out to the people that you can start talking to the younger people and start, you know, them on a different path other than just college.
That's great, though. It's true. It's just education. And sometimes it's the fear of the unknown or just the unknown where people don't want to, you know, foray into a different career. So I think that's why we're doing this. It's just to kind of get the information out there.
As the captain also said, you know, if you're not doing it, you're not going to make a mistake. You got to do it. You're going to make mistakes. That's guaranteed. You know, at my age, I'm still going to make mistakes. That's written. But you're going to learn from them and then move on from there. But if you're not doing anything, you'll never make a mistake.
I call it calculated risks. Don't like jump off a cliff until you make sure that there's like, you know, or see what's underneath you. So calculated risks are very important. So go in, get the information, and then take the leap. So that's great information. So Jacqueline, are you guys, do you own the business?
Yes.
Okay, so maybe tell us a little bit about that and, you know, starting your own business and what that looks like.
It's definitely hard. You know, it's biggest thing that we had was support from our family and friends, and starting any business is always tough. You definitely need to know people to help you out and start you basically from the bottom up. And our business is definitely word of mouth and gaining people's trust and you know, we had to bring the people to us. So luckily we have a great business and a great community that we are a very successful auto repair business. We're busy all the time. And luckily, like I said, I have a roof over my head. And but it took a lot of work to get to. We took business classes. And we still do, you know, and to have a small business is hard work and it's constant because one day there may be, you know, a little bit, we have a few months that are a little slower than others and that impacts us. And having your own business is tough because you don't have a lot of your own days off. I don't have vacation time, but we're working to hopefully have, you know, retirement at some point later in our lives and be able to enjoy it. But right now we work 7 days a week sometimes, and our hours can be to 12 hours a day. And it's physical, it's mental, it's, you know, and I basically do everything from the money side to the hands-on side. You know, I do the billing, I do that, and there's no one else, you know, so it's a lot of work, but again, it's when I look to see what hopefully is in the future, that's what I look forward to. So I put the work in now.
That's great. Yeah, it's tough, but it's your baby, right? So you know, sometimes it's not work because it's just it's something you're building.
Exactly.
So, Tiffany, what about yourself? Again, what type of benefits that you're enjoying, and a salary range, if you care to share, and what's your long-term salary range, like what's your potential?
I'm a big advocate for the union, having been on both sides of the fence, working in a non-union company where I didn't have dental, and I was responsible for paying my own health insurance, which was like $130 a week, pretty expensive, to where now I have, after 500 hours of being, 500 working hours, you get medical, dental, and we have annuity package. We have pension, full pension after 5 years, you're vested. I believe starting as an apprentice, it's in the range of $20 an hour in your check. Speaking for myself, I know I get, my whole package is, upwards, it's around $100 an hour, with all my benefits. We get 2 vacation checks. For a roofer, you get 2 vacation checks a year, so every hour you work, $7.50 goes into a vacation check for you, which you get one in June and one in December. My check as a foreman, I make $45 an hour. And, I came in as a journeyman, and, I'm a foreman, there's room for growth, in the construction, not just as a roofer, in the construction field in general. On the side, I have many certifications I've gotten since I've been in the business, which put me at a higher pay grade, made me more valuable as a worker. But also I'm thinking about my future and where I'm gonna go. As of now, I have my fire safety manager's license, and I am gonna continue, and ultimately, hopefully when I, retire from the union, I'll be maybe a site safety manager or something like that, to where I can still utilize all the experience and my skill set that I've, used in the business thus far, in a different career path where I'm still, out there.
This girl knows what she wants. I like that. What I liked about it too is that you explained with the benefit package. A lot of times we don't realize that. We just think of what our hourly rate is, but benefits are a big piece. And when we add that all up, that's huge. So that's something that, thank you for bringing that up. That's a very big portion. Captain Ann?
I'm going to talk about myself a little bit, and then I'm going to talk about what are realistic expectations for our graduates, because I think that's kind of bring it into the current. When I graduated from college, I started working for Exxon, one of the larger tanker companies in the world. It's now Sea River. But when I got that job, I was actually making more money than my father. And Dad was thrilled. He was like, he was so gracious about it, and he was thrilled, that I had landed a job like that. My industry can be a little spotty at times. Even though you make great money when you're working, they will lay you off when they tie the ship up, and so that can get a little bit rough sometimes. Currently now, the graduates we have. 98% employment within 6 months of graduation. That's pretty good. I mean, it's rare to find programs, and it's actually in their field. It's not, they're not taking jobs doing something other than what they were trained for. A lot of them sail union, so they get, the union benefits, and the union, they're in some of the large maritime labor unions. If they are working for one of the corporations oftentimes have their own internal union, so there are benefit packages and that type of thing. The average graduate, and this really is pretty remarkable, I'm with the United States Merchant Marine Academy, and it is one of the federal academies. So you spend 3 months cramming a 4-year education in the classroom, and they're also required to do a year at sea before graduation. It's part of the licensing. They actually have to have onboard experience and service. When they're sailing as a cadet, they make about $30 a day. They're working, doing apprenticeships, on board the ships. And when they graduate, this is pretty remarkable for a brand new college graduate. They can make enough money that they can afford to have their own apartment and have a reasonable new car. You know, they're not going to get the Maserati, but they're going to be able to buy something that is a nice new car that they can afford to make the payments on. And that's really, you know, remarkable for a college graduate to be able to step right out of an undergraduate program and actually be able to support themselves.
So there's, again, a lot of opportunity. That's really awesome. Let's go through what type of training or schooling is required to perform the job. I'll start with you, Brian. We talked a little bit about, you know, like apprenticeships and stuff, but if someone's going to go into the field, what type of background should they have, or maybe what should they take in high school?
If you're coming into an apprentice program, it is somewhat low, the standards, because we're going to do the training. We do require, and most apprenticeship require that you have at least 1 year of algebra, high school algebra. Because there's a lot of math in any of our fields. See, one of the things that people forget coming into an apprenticeship or coming into the construction industry is there is a tremendous amount of math involved. And so when they're in high school, they think, when am I ever going to use this? You know, you know. And if you've ever watched some young people at a cash register, if it's not working, apparently you have, huh? So they're having trouble, you know, it's $2.85 and I gave you a 5 and now, oh, what do I do now, you know? So the math is really very, very important in any of the industries that you're going to go into, because you're going to have to measure, you're going to have to know how to add fractions in your head so that you can figure out, you know, so the math is very important. As far as the other parts, the training, an overall rounded, you know, education coming out of high school would be fantastic. We have to, you know, by state, our regulations are you have to have a high school diploma or a GED in order to come into the program, and then we'll take you from there. There is tons of safety training that goes on through us, through the OSHA, which is the Occupational Safety and Health Administration. We do they have what they call an OSHA 10, OSHA 30. All of that is provided through the apprenticeship. I'm actually an authorized OSHA trainer. And then we also, New York City just came out with a whole new slew of regulations, which they're calling site safety training, which I'm sure you're familiar with. And, you know, I'm authorized by them to do that as well. And so we provide all of that safety training for these workers so that they can go to the job and come home the same way they went in. That's big for us, really big.
I'm just going to jump back to you, actually, Captain, to maybe answer that question as well. What type of, you know, schooling or what types of things should you do before you decide to go into the career? Okay.
We draw our student body from throughout the United States. There's a couple things that, well, a bunch of things. It is an intense program. You know, we run into this, people, oh, you know, they come in with inflated grades. It makes us crazy. And the weakness is the math. You know, I don't care if you're an engineer or you're a decky, you know, I'm a decky, but you have to have a really solid foundation in math skills. You know, navigation, it is, you know, it's mathematics. It's applied mathematics. You have to get good enough at it that you can actually think it in your head so that when you're working with these high-end navigation suites that, you know, you have electronic charts, sometimes you get bad inputs and you have to be able to know it by looking at it. You know, and there have been a number of nasty casualties that have occurred where people have been looking at the chart's telling them everything's fine, but when you look at your radar, you look outside that window, there is impending doom in front of your vessel. And it's like you have to be able to spot these things. They need to be athletic for us because it is a federal program. And then they will have an obligation for the United States Reserve, Merchant Marine Reserves. And that's, I think, an 8-year obligation now. But you've got to be smart, you've got to be capable, you've got to be independent, you've got to be somebody who can be given a job and you will go forth and you will get that job done. And, you know, but the mathematics, more than anything else, is critical.
Thank you. All right, we know that sometimes, risk and reward. So in many cases, a lot of your jobs have a considerable amount of risk that's possible. Maybe we'll start with Tiffany. Have you ever sustained any injuries that people wouldn't realize are associated with your work? And what are some of the safety things that prevent said possible injuries?
Personally, I've torn my ACL, and I have a bad back, but I guess it just kind of comes with the territory. Straining this, using the same muscles and stuff, repetitively. Some preventive measures, picking things up properly, going over the scope of work that you're going to be doing prior to doing it. We have things called like JHAs, job hazard analysis, that you go over, whatever it is that you're going to be doing, and you plan it out strategically, to avoid any mistakes and things like that. But, you're in construction and you're using your body, so I guess it's, the nature of the business.
We get real here. We want to know the real story. All right. Jacqueline, what about yourself?
I've had a few. I've had metal in my eye. I've had to go to the hospital for that, get it taken out. I've had a hood from a car just fall right down on my head. Got a concussion from that. Things just happen. You get burns from oil, exhaust systems. Cars run hot, and you bring it in, and you have to put your hand in there, and you get burned. I've gotten plenty of cuts and stitches. There's always something. We work with a lot of chemicals, hazardous chemicals with the cars, but we use on vehicles that people may not realize. You try to take all precautions. You try to wear the right stuff, but on a hot day, you're not wearing much to cover yourself. And cars are super hot when in the summer, and you're just working in it. So you just work with what you have, and you just, you take precaution as much as you can. And they've taught us at schools, like I said, we go to classes a lot, and we kind of are taught of what to do in certain things that can happen. But yeah, again, sometimes you just don't know when it's going to happen, unfortunately. And that's the surprise of the job. But yeah, I've definitely, and my coworkers and my husband, like I said, we've all had our share. It happens.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So when you first went into the various fields that you soireed into, did your friends, family, loved ones have concerns about you going into that particular field, and were they supportive? So we'll start with you, Captain Ann.
My friends, it was kind of interesting because, this was started the application process for A&M in 1974. And we had Navy vice admirals on the evening news very angry about the fact that the Naval Academy was being sued for refusing to admit women into their curriculum and voicing really strong opinions that women did not belong at sea. And so, I made the decision I wanted to apply to A&M, and my father he busted out laughing at first. And it was like, oh, my feelings were starting to get a little bit hurt, And he finally, this was not like him. He was just a real gentleman. But he finally stopped laughing, and he said, Ann, the reason I'm laughing isn't because you want to go to sea. The reason I'm laughing is because I always figured you'd be the one of my 3 children who would want to go to sea, and I was right. and in his way, he was, he was Navy, I was merchant, but he was as helpful as he could. The job he had at the time, he was also head of the HR board where he worked. And so he was very knowledgeable. He was knowledgeable on the things that he had seen, in the Navy, and was one of these people who got engaged in a time frame when most people did not get engaged. So he was very supportive of it and worried, because he had spent a decade himself sailing on warships. And so, he had a good understanding of some of the attitudes and problems that I was going to encounter. And I think some of the stuff I encountered even shocked him. But, my friends, it was an interesting thing, because the comment I got from them more than anything else is, I needed to see a psychiatrist because I could not accept my female role. I kid you not. And I just was like, this is something I want to go do. And I went and did it. And sometimes you just have to dig your heels in on things.
Good for you. That's awesome. That's great. Tiffany?
Wait, what was the question? I was zoning out. You know what?
That's
I
okay.
wanted to add on to
Friends, family, loved ones. Did they have concerns about you going into the field, and were they supportive?
They were supportive, and no, there weren't any concerns. But really quick, I wanted to jump back to the question I just answered about the injuries, because I totally missed the mark. I was thinking, I just sat in a 4-hour, first of all, I'm a foreman, I should know this, but I just sat in a 4-hour safety orientation for Skanska. In the construction field, their #1 priority is safety. I mean, that I can't stress it enough. And there are many things in place to, avoid injuries, elimination, and things like that. There's administrative controls, engineering controls, from tow boards, guardrails, platforms, things like that, to personal protective, equipment that we wear every day, from our glasses to our gloves to our boots to our body harnesses and, self-retracting lifelines and things like that. A lot goes into making sure that, every worker goes home, because at the end of the day, there's a lot of moving parts and a lot of things that can go wrong. But, from what I got, especially from being in the union, is their #1 concern and priority is that each worker returns home in the same condition that they arrived there in, so a lot more goes into it.
Thank you for that positive spin. I like that. Well, I will tell you, I know Tiffany personally, and she does these lives off the 100th freaking floor of a Manhattan building, and she's hanging off the edge, and I do check to make sure you got her harness on, by the way. And it's crazy. It's remarkable the things that she does and what she sees, and the views up there are just like crazy. So, but I'm glad there's safety, and safety is our first concern, of course. Jacqueline, what about yourself? Friends, family? Well, you kind of started with your husband, so I'm sure he was right there with you. And well, maybe I shouldn't assume that. Okay. But friends, family, loved ones have concerns about going into the field, and were they supportive?
At first, well, definitely my biggest support was my husband. And then my family, friends, probably not, definitely not. They were not supportive at all. I'm an accident-prone person. So they were just very worried in regards to the field of what I was getting into. Like I said, it is a very hands-on job. It's a very physical job. I'm holding, physical-wise, we could be lifting. We're lifting engines. We're lifting parts. We're lifting, a lot. And again. And of course, I get metal in my eye, probably like, I think when I got into the shop, into the garage, I probably got metal in my eye, I think my 4th day in. So my parents weren't too happy about it. But, as they realized that I started getting a passion for it, and me, insisting that this is what I wanted to do, that I do really, truly enjoy it, little by little, they were more welcoming of it. My dad always gets a kick now that I do his work, I repair his vehicle. And then my friends are still wary of it, just again, because it's just a very hands-on job that, and then I still do get injured a lot on the job, and it just happens, it's part of the field. that people probably don't realize that it happens. But again, I think they do support me in the sense that they know that I enjoy it, that I have a passion for it, and it's something that I want to do and continue. And I've always thought too, if anything, if we were to ever, as a small business, if we had to separate or something like that, or I've always would stick to this business. I would always grow somewhere else if needed, and I found that I really have a talent for it. So
That's wonderful.
thank you.
Now, Brian, just to kind of loop you in, I mean, do you see any of that with family members coming knocking at your door like, what do you have my daughter get into? Do you get any of that, or?
When I went into training, they looked at me like, yeah, you really don't belong in training, But I just seem to fall into it, and it's working, And I get good responses from those that I train. I get good responses from the companies I train for. So, it's been very rewarding that way. So.
Well, I want to thank all of you, but don't leave, because now I'm going to turn it to you guys, to the audience. We're going to get the microphone up in the front. If there's anybody that has any questions for any of the panelists, please come up. This is your time to get those questions answered. So do we have anybody to start? I know the first person's always really hard. I'll have to pick somebody. No, I'm kidding. Oh, I love you. Okay, good. All right. Do you want me to bring this to you?
I'm curious about the project management training. Do you just come straight in and get tested to see that you have the mental competency to learn? Or do you need to go into one of the trades where you're physically doing something, and then you can, if you're good at that, then go in for project management? And do you have training for electrician? Brian, yeah.
We are not in the electrical field. We handle steam fitting, fire sprinkler, plumbing, sheet metal, and heating, air conditioning, and ventilation. That's the programs that we're involved with. As far as project management goes, that's one of the areas that you need to know the trade, and we're seeing a lot of that with colleges as well. They're putting out project managers, but they have no knowledge of the trade. So these young men and women are coming out of college expecting to make X amount of dollars, and they're not being offered that because you can't be a project manager of something you know nothing about. You know the skills of being a project manager, but you don't know the field. So you have anywhere from 3 to 5 years before anyone's going to offer you the kind of money that was promised to you upon graduation. So our apprentices go through, we make sure they're out in the field for at least another 3 to 4 years, and then they can come back and take the project management course.
That's a great point. Yeah, we can't start at the top. You kind of have to learn and work your way up to the top, so that's very true. All right, anybody else? Next.
Yeah, I have a question for Captain Ann. Can you describe how your career and your family life, how you had to balance being at sea and everything? Like, how did you manage your home life with your career, your demanding career?
Yeah. If it's like balancing life, between being gone so much and being home.
Yes, your family life, work-life balance with such a demanding career.
Yeah, that is one of the areas that it is, when women decide they want to have a family, a seagoing career does not work out well, for raising young children. Somebody has to be there, to take care of them. That said, I know some women who've tried to do it, and they have all at some point in time said, no, my son, my daughter needs me at home, and, the trading the child off between mom and dad doesn't lead to a good marriage, and it's hard on the children. There is one case I know of that was highly successful. Lovely woman, lost her husband. She had four young children, and she wanted to have a way to be able to take care of her family. So her mother moved into the house, and when she was gone at sea sailing as a ship steward, it was the grandmother who took care of the kids, and the children are all terrifically supportive of her doing that. The good side of the whole thing, at least, for the, not caregiving parent, when they're home, they're really home. It's not like, you're gone for years at a crack and then you come home for a short visit. Most ships you're sailing either 2 months on, 2 months off, and your 2 months off, you really are off, and you can do things like, walk your kids to school, be there for them, when they come home at night. But you need a terrifically supportive spouse, male or female. You need a very supportive spouse for it to work.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, I have 2 questions. Brian, the first for you. Is there an age restriction to someone becoming an apprentice?
The only age that we have is that they have to be 18 years of age.
Okay.
That's it.
And there's no cap on that?
We have no cap.
Okay, thank you. And Jocelyn? No, I'm terrible. Jackie. What's the earning capability for someone, I'm not asking you your income, obviously, but what's the earning capability for someone who wanted to work as an automotive tech?
As your average auto technician, and obviously you can grow if you have certifications. You can start at any job, at any level, but you can definitely grow and more. I know other shops will pay more if you have these certifications, but your average, you can definitely, I think as an average, you can get like $45K a year. And I know certain shops, which is, successful shops, they will have benefits, which is great, healthcare benefits and stuff. And yeah, and again, you are in that position as a person, you can gain more if you take the classes and teach yourself in that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
First of all, I want to say thank you. All of you are extremely impressive. And I'm sitting in the corner, I'm like, wow, I don't think I can even comprehend how to achieve some of the things that you guys have done. So kudos to all of you. You're very, very impressive. My next question to all of you, if you could do it all again, start to finish, would you change anything or would you do exactly what you've done again?
Who would like to start?
Well, for me, I think I would have applied myself a lot harder when I was younger, instead of waiting till I got a little older and then, then it kind of kicked in, because I would have progressed a lot further and a lot faster. I think that would have been the only thing I really would change. I enjoy what I do.
What I've always said on that is I was very blessed to be born in a time that I could pursue a career that I wanted to do. Had I been born 10 years earlier, I never would have been to sea. So yes, I would do it again. Even if I knew in advance all the things that were waiting, I would have gone and done it anyway.
I too would have done the same thing. I just wish I started earlier, and applied myself younger as well.
For myself, this field just kind of fell on my lap, and how the steps came to, I don't know if I would have been in this field if certain things would have happened earlier. And again, that car accident helped me, lead me to this, and I wouldn't change it. I wish I never thought I would be in this position ever in my life. But I don't take it for granted at all, and I love what I do, and I'm glad that it fell in my lap the way it did. And yeah, I wouldn't change anything. I wish I knew I had this kind of, talent beforehand, because I would have started earlier, but not saying that I didn't enjoy what I did beforehand, so.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Hi. My question is for each of the panelists, because for me, I'm an older person and I have limitations. And I'm just wondering how in your respective fields someone like myself would be considered an asset and not a liability because I'm not on equal footing with other workers, say younger or, people who may not have issues that I have. So that's what I'd like to know, and thank you.
Was everybody able to hear that? Okay, basically, so with having some limitations.
Yes, and being an older worker, how do the respective fields, how are they going to look at me as an asset and not a liability?
Okay, being an older worker, how can she be viewed as an asset versus a liability? Based on some limitations that she has, how can she be an asset, not a liability for a company or one of the places that you're affiliated with?
Well, in the construction industry, obviously you wouldn't be in the field, but there are many behind-the-scene tasks that need to be done, from computer work to drafting. If you're able to educate yourself or be educated in drafting and that kind of thing, there's a lot of positions behind the scenes that do not require, physically climbing ladders and hanging, in harnesses and things of that nature.
I know my field, there's, I've got the front of the shop and then the back of the shop. Back of the shop, you're doing more physical stuff, but again, I wasn't in the back of the shop the entire time. There's a whole, there's other jobs right in front where we're doing a lot of computer work. I do a lot of research, and with a small business, I definitely, we have people that come in and they help us get our name out, and we do a lot of work outside of the shop, and that would be definitely something that you could offer or have someone else offer for us and do for us. But yeah, like he said, there's a lot of, it's not just in the shop that we need, that we have a job. There's so much more than that in the service writing industry for the job. And the upfront, you're the face that you're the person that someone would see first before they see me in the shop. So that's a huge job for us that would be available.
For my field, obviously there are physical requirements because it's construction, but as well there are, people who run the office for us and handle the logistics of, the jobs and deliveries and billing and things of that nature. And I'm sure a lot more, which I'm not that knowledgeable about, but I'm sure there would be a place for somebody with physical limitations.
For working on board ships, there is a U.S. Coast Guard physical that we have to pass. So, on the ships, there are limitations on, the physical capability. There's a lot of things you just have to be able to do. But that said, there are large corporations that own and run the vessels. And there's a terrific amount of shoreside work that is there and is appropriate. But I want to kind of talk about the injuries for a moment, because most of those injuries occur when people do not use the labor-saving devices that are there to keep people from becoming injured. So women, when they're pulling engines, they'll use chain falls, they'll use, come-alongs, they'll use all sorts of equipment that are the types of injury-preventing equipment that everybody should be using. And sometimes, I'll be blunt, sometimes the guys try to rely on their upper body strength and they get injured because they're trying to muscle something rather than using the equipment they should be using. So, the women work smart. The women, they do. They figure it out. They're going to go, nope, I cannot lift that 55-gallon drum, nor am I even going to try. So what do? They go get the right equipment that should be used with it, and they move it safely.
Thank you. So I guess in general, disabilities aren't viewed as they used to be years ago, maybe, where people are willing to hire somebody like, you having trouble hearing me? Is that better? Oh, sorry. I guess years ago, disabilities might have been viewed differently. So is that changing where someone like myself has a chance to do something that I might want to do and love to do, and not see it as a handicap, but an asset, that I'm an asset and not like a liability to a company. Is that true nowadays?
I believe so, definitely.
So I want to thank everybody for their input. Thank you very much. And thank
You're
you
welcome.
for coming here to the Women's Day.
Thank you.
Thank you for the time that you've put into this panel. I've been blessed enough to work in construction my whole life. But I wanted to kind of finish a conversation that was brought up as far as what the potentials are in salary earnings for not only women in construction, but across the board, and where you see that glass ceiling and whether or not we're really breaking through that.
Well, one of the advantages of apprenticeship is and as the supervisor had alluded to it earlier today, it's equal pay for equal work. The state monitors what we pay. So I can't have a man and a woman at different salaries. They must be equal to do the same exact job. Where you end up, that's up to you. There's no ceiling. If you become a journeyman and then you decide to move on into becoming a foreman, and then your capabilities bring you into being a project manager or a job super or a safety professional, there's no stopping you.
And I know some of these salaries firsthand that are now being offered equally are, six-digit salaries when you've certainly, come to the pinnacle of your career.
Yes, absolutely. And you don't have to get that far. I know apprentices, and it's an oddity, but I had a second-year apprentice who made over $100,000 in his second year as an apprentice. He was on prevailing wage jobs, but he was there every day, all day, and made a ton of money. It's there, and it's for everybody. Let's see if I can put it right. It's for the qualified person. Take gender out of it, take race out of it. It's for the qualified, competent person. It's where you want to be. That's the best I could say.
I'd just like to piggyback off that a little bit, because from my experience, I came in, with no real skills or knowledge, making $17 an hour. And fast forward 5 years later, I've stepped over and past men that have been in the business for 20 years, still holding the same position, and in 5 short years, I not only stepped past them, in salary, but in position. I went from $17 an hour to 5 years later, I make $100, I make those 6 figures, so it is possible. It just boils down to what you're willing to do and how far you're willing to go to achieve that,
So that's great. I mean, we know we all can do it because people are doing it. And I think that's really the bottom line premise. And if it's not working at the place, go to another place. I mean, that's sometimes not as easy to do, but that's really, the opportunities here, that's the beauty of America. So do you have any other questions?
I would just like to finish by thanking Captain Ann for her service and also being one of our forging energies as far as going out there and being a first and taking that lead for so many others to follow.
Great, thank you very much. That's true. Well, you definitely did a remarkable job, and you're amazing. I mean, to do the things that you've done and to tell your stories and being so candid, we thank you so much. And Brian, thank you for being the person to, lift women up to do bigger and better things that they can do. That sometimes they just don't realize that they can. So it's very exciting. So this was awesome. So can we give them a round of applause again?